Welcome to our season. I'm Kenitra Pulliams. We want to say hello to our panel of guests, starting on the far end with Valerie Still, the all-time leading scorer at the University of Kentucky basketball program, as well as Ann Gaffigan, former American record holder in the steeplechase. And to my immediate left, we have Brenda Van Langen, American sports broadcasters. Ladies, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about a little non-traditional sport, stepping into the octagon for mixed martial arts. The first mixed martial arts UFC event took place November 12th, 1993, but the combat sport actually has roots that date all the way back to 648 BC. Senator John McCain described MMA as human cockfighting. Boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Karate, Kickboxing, Kung Fu, Taekwondo, just some of the disciplines used in the sport. How do you ladies feel about MMA just as a whole, as a sport? We'll start with you, Ann.
Well, I'm a huge fan. My fiance is an MMA fighter here in Kansas City, just opened a MMA gym. And so obviously I'm a fan of him, but I've actually been a fan since the late 90s or early 2000s because we knew a couple of the fighters that knew my brother, and I think it's a really exciting sport.
Is it a sport?
I think it's definitely a sport, but you know, in our civilized society, you know, I think the question is it human cockfighting? I mean, is it barbaric? Is it the history of boxing in general? I mean,
and your answer is what?
For me, it is rather barbaric. I mean, there's been questions about outlawing even boxing because of concussions, because how brutal it is. And as a society, do we, you know, feel that this is a sport, or should we regulate something like that?
Well, and I think it's a sport, and I think that everybody has an opportunity through sports to be able to do what is their interest, their skill level, what they're passionate about. So I'm okay with that, but I'm not a fan of fighting at all. I don't really watch boxing. I don't watch any of that. It's just not of interest to me. And so, if, you know, as far as watching sports, I go for a lot of, you know, team and individual sports, but don't really have an interest in the fighting. But I'm really interested to hear the conversation today.
Well, Elite SC, which no longer exists, had the first MMA event televised on a major network for an organization that helped to promote the sport to what it is now, but kind of they're no longer in existence. Pro or con?
Well, that's actually not uncommon in the MMA world. It's happened to several promotions, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast. I mean, back when when we started basketball or football, there was a lot of startups and competing entities that either merged with the existing ones or they fell apart. And so that's happened in MMA, and one of the biggest barriers for MMA is acceptance in high society. You know, it's still not legal in New York, and you know, that's been a big fight for them. And so, you know, over time they have to do what anybody has to do, which is regulate and make sure you show that you're concerned for the safety of your fighters and the behavior of your fighters, and not encourage you know, anything that is considered just barbaric. You know, eye gouging can't be allowed, you know, cheap shots can't be allowed. And so over time, but I have to say, it's growing.
Is okay.
You're supposed to tap.
You're supposed to,
You're
but
supposed
the
to tap.
rule is if you don't tap, you know,
No,
I'm a manly man. I'm not tapping.
Actually, the refs can stop the fight before you tap if he can see that you're about to break your arm and there's no other way out but for your arm to break. So actually, that is taken care of. And you have to look at how dangerous a lot of American sports are. I mean, look at all of these things that are coming out about concussions with football players who are now retired, you know, and were some of the ones playing back in the day. I mean, there's significant repercussions to playing football, even with all of the padding and the helmets and everything else. And in hockey, I mean, people love the fights in hockey. You know, yeah, there's a 2-minute penalty, but generally it's encouraged. So I think for boxing and MMA to be pigeonholed as the only barbaric sports that we held up in America,
well, it's
not fair.
But I think there is an element of, you know, classism, because, you know, boxing has always been an option for individuals who are low on their luck, don't have a lot of money, the lower class, even back in the 1700s, when they were gouging out eyes and biting people's tongues off and pulling some other parts of the body that, you know, they would
ballroom brawl.
They would, yeah. Well, not ballroom. These were just, you know, out and out, just fights wherever.
In the
you know,
back alley.
Yeah. And so there is a tendency, I think, to see these types of contests as an exploitation of people that really are low in their luck or don't have the means to do other things. And that might not be the case.
Couldn't you say that about a lot of sports? That someone who maybe wouldn't have otherwise gotten into college or gotten their way paid through college or graduated from college gets to because they're good at a sport?
I mean, you could say that, but I mean, are you going to be killed in the sport of football?
No one has ever died in an MMA fight.
Well, wait, let's talk about just kind of the promotion of the sport and the growth of it. I mean, if you look at it now, the events, it's targeted toward the male fan base. Do men really want to see two attractive women, if that, bash each other's faces in?
I do.
Yes, they do.
I mean, what is the appeal? What is the appeal for a man to see? You know, if you see a woman walking by, you're like, oh, she's attractive, and then you want to see her get bloodied and cut up, and
who cares? I don't know why we care. You know, I mean, I don't. If I'm going to go out and I'm going to run fast, and some guy doesn't like it because he wants to see me, you know, stand still and look pretty in a pink dress, I don't care, you know. So I guess I feel like we're past that, and like being in the MMA world, there are a lot of men who think women's MMA is just as exciting to watch as men's MMA, and you know, sometimes more so because there's more fundamentals involved, etc. Similar things that they say with basketball. So I guess for me, it's like if there are men that are going to say, well, I don't want to see two women beat each other up, therefore I'm against women's MMA. Then there's not a place for you to be a fan for women's MMA, and so be it. So we're offering an alternative to somebody else.
Right. Well, and I'm not saying that, you know, this is, you know, female, male, or sexism. I'm saying the question shouldn't be whether women should participate. It should be we as a society be questioning, you know, going out there.
The motivation for everyone?
And wouldn't that much, I think a lot of the appeal, and I can say this for myself when I see even UFC fighting, is it's kind of, for me, I like seeing, you know, the blood and the, you know, it's like the violence on TV. I mean, is that good for our society?
So you're saying it like basically it's all personal preference?
I don't know if it's personal preference, but there is.
I mean, you can have a competitive spirit and like to see action, but I personally don't like to see blood spewing across the mat and somebody's tooth falling out.
Right.
I don't want to see a bloody nose.
Well,
that's not attractive and that's not appealing.
Well, and that's why I'm not really interested in the sport per se. But you know, whether it's women or men, again, you know, if it's their outlet, if that's their sport that they want to do, then they should be allowed to. And if people are fans of MMA for the skill and the you know, all that happens within it, the competitiveness, the strategy for getting in certain, you know, situations. I think that you can find that same sort of skill with the women athletes as well. And so if somebody's really a fan of MMA for the purity of the sport, I would think they would be a fan of women fighting as well.
And when we return to the show, we will take a deeper look at the women involved in MMA. Stay tuned, you're watching Our Season.